Welcome to a virtual meeting with the Flood Control District. I am Robert Fricke with the communications team. This is our virtual community engagement meeting about the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin and West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin projects. Our purpose for today is to share information about the projects and hear your thoughts. Your voice matters and we appreciate you being here. Before we dive in, we have a pre-recorded message from Harris County Precinct 4 Commissioner Leslie Briones.
Hi, I'm Leslie Briones, your Harris County Commissioner for Precinct 4. Thank you so much for joining us and making the time to be here today for this important discussion. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Harris County Flood Control District Executive Director, Dr. Tina Peterson, and her excellent team for their partnership and support on this project and so many others throughout Harris County. One of my top priorities as your commissioner is to reduce flooding risk. My team and I are committed to not only fixing past flood damage, but also to protecting our communities from future damage caused by catastrophic flooding. We know it's not if, it's just a matter of when. This project is all about keeping our communities safe. When we have heavy rain, the stormwater detention basin will help by storing extra water and then slowly releasing it back into the creek or bayou once the rain has stopped. This will protect our homes and businesses from flooding. We value your feedback and are committed to engaging with you throughout this process. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for your patience and your partnership, and I hope you find the presentation informative and valuable. Together, we can make our community more resilient to flooding and ensure a safer future for all of our families. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Briones. Here's what we'll cover during today's meeting. We'll start with a brief presentation about who we are and what we do. Then we'll give an overview of the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin and West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin projects, including key details on the recommended design, timeline, and next steps. We will follow that by opening the floor up for questions. Please note the chat feature is disabled throughout the meeting. Instead, we are using the Q&A feature, and you may use the Q&A feature to drop in your questions or feedback at any time. You do not have to wait until the Q&A session. Now I will hand things over to Lisa Towser with our communications team, who will share information about the Flood Control District. Lisa, over to you.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you to everyone joining us tonight. I want to start by sharing a little bit about the Flood Control District and the important work we do. Overseeing one of the most comprehensive and complex stormwater management systems in the nation, the Harris County Flood Control District serves one of the largest, most populated, and most flood-prone areas in the United States, Harris County, Texas. It's a county shaped by water. Our mission is to plan, implement, and maintain flood risk reduction projects guided by community and natural values. It's complex work that takes time, coordination, and care. We are laser focused on advancing flood risk reduction and maintenance efforts that deliver lasting benefits across the county. And by moving projects efficiently from planning to construction, the Flood Control District works tirelessly to strengthen flood resilience for today and the future. We were established by the Texas legislature in 1937 after devastating back-to-back floods hit the Houston area. Today, we are governed by the Harris County Commissioners Court. And for nearly 90 years, we've invested billions of dollars in flood risk reduction projects throughout Harris County. We're creating real change, improving quality of life, and building a more resilient future. And how do we get all of this important flood risk reduction work done? We do it through a variety of funding sources, including the Flood Control District's dedicated property tax, the 2018 bond program, and a wide range of federal, state, and local partnerships. Our drainage infrastructure is extensive. Not only do we manage hundreds of stormwater detention basins, but we also maintain more miles of channels than some states have in highways. In fact, our network includes 2,500 miles of channels, which is the distance from the state of New York to the state of California. This expansive channel system moves stormwater out to Galveston Bay, and during heavy rain events, these channels may start to reach capacity. That is when the stormwater detention basins we've built throughout the county step in and temporarily hold that stormwater, which helps reduce the risk of flooding. Most people are aware that Harris County is prone to flooding. Not only do we have extreme rainfall events like tropical storms and hurricanes, but our land is also flat, and that means stormwater often moves slowly when making its way to bayous and channels. And making things even trickier are the soils across the county, which are mostly clay and don't absorb stormwater very well. So what happens, stormwater collects on the ground, creating a pooling effect, which increases the risk of flooding. An interesting fact, and certainly something important to note, is that some streets in Harris County are intended to temporarily hold stormwater before conveying it to our channels and bayous. That's why it's critical to adhere to safety warnings and stay off the roads during heavy rain events. Now let's talk a little bit more about stormwater, where it goes, and who is in charge at the various points in its journey. When falling from the clouds to making its way to Galveston Bay, there's not just one person or entity solely in charge. While the Flood Control District plays a critical role in reducing flood risks, we're actually part of a much larger team effort. When rain falls on or near your home and in neighborhoods across the county, storm drains and roadside ditches collect stormwater and move it away from homes and streets. Those drainage systems are typically managed by the Harris County Engineering Department, a municipal utility district, or a city like the City of Houston. Stormwater then makes its way to the larger bayous and channels, which are typically managed by the Flood Control District before finally flowing into Galveston Bay. With that in mind, it's also important to know that Harris County is comprised of a vast system of bayous, tributaries, and other waterways that make up 23 unique watersheds. You may want to know, what exactly is a watershed? Watersheds are designated geographic areas where all the stormwater in that region ultimately drains to the same bayou or body of water. The projects we're talking about tonight are located in the Addicks Reservoir watershed in western Harris County. Rainfall within the 138 miles of the Addicks Reservoir watershed drains to the watershed's primary waterway, Langham Creek. Dinner Creek is also a tributary of Langham Creek. Stormwater runoff from this watershed drains through the Addicks Reservoir and eventually into Buffalo Bayou. Built in the 1940s along with Barker Reservoir, Addicks Reservoir is part of a federal project designed to reduce flooding risks along Buffalo Bayou, which flows west to east through downtown Houston. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers owns, operates, and maintains the reservoirs. Here we're showing the location of Addicks Reservoir, Langham Creek, and the tributaries that flow into the Addicks Reservoir. Now that we've shared key background information, we'll get into the important details about the projects. As we go through the project details, feel free to drop questions or comments into the Q&A feature. With that, I'll hand it over to Jonathan St. Romain, who's with the Partnerships and Program Division with the Flood Control District. He'll share more about the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin and the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin. Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Both of the projects we are talking about tonight, the Dinner Creek and West Little York Stormwater Detention Basins, are located in West Harris County, south of FM 529 between Greenhouse Road and Highway 6. This area has a history of flooding during heavy rain events, particularly for the subdivisions located downstream of the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin. Both of these projects aim to reduce flood risk in the area by increasing stormwater storage capacity along Dinner Creek and Langham Creek. Let's take a minute to further explain how stormwater detention basins work to help with flood risk reduction. When there's heavy rainfall, water levels in our channels start to rise. When a channel reaches its carrying capacity, stormwater can overflow into the detention basin through a structure typically known as a weir. Weirs are built across a channel specifically to help direct the flow of stormwater. While channel conveyance improvements help move stormwater more efficiently out of an area, stormwater detention basins hold stormwater, but only temporarily. We strategically construct stormwater detention basins where they will intercept excess stormwater to help keep it from overwhelming channels. Once water levels in the channel go back down, the stormwater stored in the detention basin flows by gravity through pipes back out into the channel and eventually out to Galveston Bay. The Flood Control District is a no adverse impact agency, which means we do not allow our projects to reduce flooding risk for one area while increasing risk somewhere else. We construct a stormwater detention basin to store excess stormwater. Then, once the channel starts to recede, the stormwater makes its way out of the detention basin and back out into the channel. All stormwater detention basins serve the same purpose: temporary storage for stormwater, but they can be designed differently. Some are built as one large compartment, like the examples shown here, while others are made up of several compartments that function together as one stormwater detention basin. The individual compartment can also be a mix of wet bottom or dry bottom. Wet bottom compartments always have a permanent pool of water with extra capacity for storing stormwater during heavy rain. Dry bottom compartments are typically lined with grass and are designed to drain completely between rain events. The Dinner Creek project is expected to be constructed as a wet bottom basin, while the West Little York project is expected to be a dry bottom basin. Additional details for each project will be covered later in this presentation. So now let's talk more about the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project. The primary goals of this project are to increase stormwater storage capacity within the existing stormwater detention basin, help reduce flood risk for downstream neighborhoods, and provide both regional detention and long-term retention. Long-term retention is an approach the Flood Control District is introducing with this unique effort. This project is located southeast of the Greenhouse Road and FM 529 intersection along Dinner Creek, which is a tributary of Langham Creek. A small portion of this project site was originally excavated by a subdivision developer to be a 3-compartment dry bottom stormwater detention basin. Now that the Flood Control District owns and maintains this property, the recommended design expands the Dinner Creek Basin with 4 wet bottom compartments. On the map, you can see them labeled as the northwest, southwest, northeast, and southeast compartments. The recommended design also includes incorporating connections between the compartments that enable the compartments to function together as a single basin. The northwest compartment is designed to also capture stormwater via a channel from FM 529 to the north. The project will also modify the way the stormwater detention basin takes stormwater in and lets it out. It will add a gate to the outfall in the southeast compartment to provide retention. Here's what the basin in Dinner Creek might look like on a sunny day with the gate closed. The project is unique because the gated outlet between the southeast compartment and Dinner Creek allows the basin to store stormwater for short-term or long-term periods. Let's take a closer look at what that means. Detention means temporarily holding stormwater and slowly releasing it to reduce flood risk downstream. Retention means keeping stormwater in place for a long period. With this project's design, the new gated outlet will let the basin retain water in addition to detaining it. This is particularly important because this project is upstream of Addicks Reservoir. Retaining additional stormwater within the basin can reduce the amount of stormwater that fills Addicks Reservoir during a rain event. Now, let's walk through a hypothetical rain event to better visualize detention versus retention. During a heavy rain event, water levels in Dinner Creek rise and will eventually flow into the basin over the overflow weir. After the rain passes and water levels in Dinner Creek go down, the basin begins to drain. The basin drains naturally using gravity, slowly draining stormwater through the outlet outlined in blue. Typically, within about 24 hours after the rainfall has ended, the detained stormwater will have fully drained out into Dinner Creek. Any additional stormwater flowing through Dinner Creek will continue into Addicks Reservoir. The retained stormwater behind the closed gate outlined in orange remains in the basin for an indefinite period of time. The outlet gate can be opened to release retained stormwater when it's safe to do so. That decision is based on several factors, including current and forecasted water levels in Addicks Reservoir, release rates from the reservoir, and rainfall forecasts. Now that we've explained the difference between detention and retention of stormwater and how the two work together to provide stormwater storage capacity, let's talk more about the project benefits. When we calculate the stormwater storage capacity of a detention basin, we use a unit of measurement called an acre-foot. 1 acre-foot equals about 325,851 gallons of water. The Dinner Creek Basin is expected to provide about 854 acre-feet of stormwater storage capacity, and that's roughly 278 million gallons. To put that into perspective, that's equal to approximately 854 football fields covered in 1 foot of water. Atlas 14 is the current official nationwide rainfall study used to provide engineers with rainfall estimates in order to model a variety of rainfall events, from everyday rainstorms to rare extreme events. Before Atlas 14 was adopted, the former 100-year design storm models for this project showed a water surface elevation reduction by nearly 1 foot within near the project limits. When we say water surface elevations reduced, we mean that a particular rain event will cause Dinner Creek to rise to a specific level today before this project occurs. But once the project is complete, that same specific storm event would produce a water level in Dinner Creek that's lower than before. So for this project, it will be nearly 1 foot lower. According to the national objectives, which establishes the qualifying criteria for federally funded projects, the benefit area identified for this project is estimated to reach more than 43,000 people, of which approximately 52% live in low to moderate income areas. Earlier in this presentation, Lisa referenced funding sources. So let's take a closer look at funding for this project. The estimated total cost to see the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin through to completion as of today is about $51.2 million. This project is being funded by 2 sources, including the 2018 bond program and a community development block grant. We partnered with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, to receive funding from its Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program. Disaster recovery funding focuses on projects helping communities with long-term recovery after a federally declared disaster, which in this case is Hurricane Harvey. The Texas General Land Office, or GLO, administers the grant program at the state level for HUD. This means the GLO distributes funds to local, county, and state agencies approved to receive funding for projects benefiting areas directly impacted by Harvey. The Flood Control District has been awarded approximately $322 million for projects meeting the program's requirements. The Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project could receive up to $48.9 million in CDBG disaster recovery funding. This project's service area benefits households where at least 51% of the population meets the federal classification of low to moderate income. Now that we've talked about the design, benefits, and funding for this project, let's talk about timeline and next steps. This project's design was finalized in the first quarter of this year. After the design stage comes the construction stage. Construction is anticipated to begin in the third quarter of 2026 and estimated to be completed by the fourth quarter of 2028. As we move into the construction stage, we will share updates with the community. Now that we've provided information on the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin, we'd like to share details on the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin that is also part of our efforts to reduce the risk of flooding in the Addicks Reservoir watershed. So what's expected of this project once completed? First, it increases stormwater storage capacity. It also reduces flood risk for areas downstream. And finally, it helps support future drainage improvements. The West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin is located downstream of the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin near Langham Creek, north of West Little York Road and west of Highway 6. This project was originally recommended through the Lower Langham Creek Regional Detention Study. The site was partially excavated between 2020 and 2024. After that, the project was paused while additional funding was secured. Now, with new funding expected from a state legislative appropriation administered by the Texas Water Development Board, the design has been updated and the project is moving forward to construction. The recommended design for the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin includes 3 dry bottom compartments. Compartment 1 is located just north of Langham Creek, and compartments 2 and 3 are south of Langham Creek. The West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin will provide approximately 100 acre-feet of stormwater storage capacity. That's adding more than 32 million gallons of storage capacity to help reduce the risk of flooding in the area. Before Atlas 14 was adopted, the 500-year design storm models for this project showed a water surface elevation reduction along Langham Creek by nearly 2 inches near the project limits. This project is funded in part through the 2018 bond program and up to $6.5 million in state funding administered by the Texas Water Development Board. Additional partnership funds from the Environmental Protection Agency are expected to be secured for an additional phase of this project that will provide water quality enhancements. The estimated cost to complete the design stage and the construction stage is approximately $9.2 million. Of course, this is just an estimate at this time for both the design and construction stages. This brings us to our timeline and next steps for the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin. The design stage for this project is anticipated to be complete in the second quarter of 2026. When following our project lifecycle, after this stage comes the construction stage. Construction is anticipated to begin in the first quarter of 2027 and estimated to be completed by the third quarter of 2027. As more is known about construction timing and impacts, we will update the webpage for this project on our website. If you haven't already, please sign up for our mailing list to receive these updates by visiting hcfcd.org/C38 for the Dinner Creek project and C37 for the West Little York project. Again, we appreciate your attending this meeting to learn more about our work. Information from this meeting and a recording of this live stream will be available on our website and YouTube channel. It's now time to hear your questions and comments, and I'll hand it back over to Robert to kick off the Q&A.
Thanks, Jonathan. Before we move into the Q&A, I just want to say we truly value your input. Your feedback helps shape this project and others happening across Harris County. As a reminder, you can drop your questions into the Q&A box while we're together tonight. We will do our best to answer every question, but please know that any question not addressed will receive a response after the meeting. Joining Jonathan for the Q&A are Jeff Haber, Project Manager, and Rod Pinero, Assistant Project Manager for the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin Project. And we also have Haney Malak, Department Manager, Capital Project South for West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin Project. While we are waiting for questions to come in, we want to acknowledge the important role that you all play in helping keep our drainage network operating as designed. Flood control works best when residents are a part of it, and communities know when stormwater isn't flowing right, when debris builds up, or when erosion starts after heavy rain. You are truly the eyes on the ground, and you can report issues directly to us at hcfcd.org/service-request or by calling 346-286-4197. We have also expanded our FAST response program to help address the purported issues. FAST stands for Fast Action Service Teams. These are the folks who respond when something urgent needs attention, such as a downed tree blocking a channel, erosion after a storm, or illegal dumping. They move fast, they work safely, and they get results residents can see. Now it's time to take some of your questions. All right, our first question is for Jeff. Jeff, the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project plans to convert the 3 existing compartments into wet bottom compartments and add a 4th compartment. Can you please explain in more detail why the existing compartments need to be converted and why a 4th compartment is needed?
Sure, Robert. Basically, there's a couple of aspects to this. The system currently exists as 3 dry bottom detention basins that have been partially constructed. They were initially built for an existing subdivision that was mentioned previously, and then another contractor that went in and excavated some sand material. So they currently exist in a state that's partially constructed. So they have steep side slopes. They can't be maintained very well. There's some erosion issues. So part of the project will go in there to clean all that up, make it a stable slope that's easily accessible for maintenance, for mowing, and also to provide additional stormwater detention that was noted to help with flood reduction downstream. Another component is they're being constructed as wet bottom basins to provide an additional stormwater quality benefit. In time, these basins will have certain plantings along the bottom of the basin, kind of at the water line. And these plantings and vegetation will provide additional water quality benefits to help improve the creek downstream to provide additional benefit. So those are kind of the main aspects of the project and the need to go forward with additional excavation and work on this area.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Our next question is for Rod. Rod, the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project will enclose an existing channel near FM 529. Can you share more details on what this means and why this is an important part of the design? And are we altering part of the natural channel design?
Thank you, Robert. Again, this project will place a large reinforced concrete box over a short section of the existing channel near FM 529. Think of it as building a strong lid over part of the ditch. Right now, this stretch of channel is open and does not provide reliable access for maintenance crews. By enclosing this section, We create permanent, stable access for maintenance trucks and equipment. We improve safety for the crews, and we make future inspections and repairs easier. Essentially, we are improving access, but this work does not affect the channel capacity.
All right, thank you, Rod. Our next question is for Jeff. Jeff, it was mentioned during the presentation that construction for the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project is anticipated to start in Q3 of 2026. We often receive questions about project timelines and why the construction process can't start sooner. Can you please explain what steps are being taken between now and construction start?
Sure. The process to go from the design stage to construction, there's a couple of steps in between. Basically, there's a need to go through the public bid advertisement phase in order to advertise the project so that we can, receive necessary proposals from the contractors. Another layer to that is this project was being bid through a competitive sealed proposal process. So that allows the Harris County Flood Control District to select a contractor, not just based on lowest price, but that's one component, including project experience, construction scheduling, overall team experience of the contractor. So it allows the committee to go in and rank these and select the most highly qualified contractor. So that took a little bit of time, but ultimately that's what segues into the selection. And then from there, you have to go through the necessary contract paperwork and all that and permit approval once the contractor's on board. So there's a little bit of time with that in order to go from design to construction, but we're coming near to that finish line.
All right, thanks, Jeff. And we have received a question from Adam. Adam is asking, where will fill be taken to? Jeff and Handy, can you please explain where will the excavated material be disposed, both of the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin and West Little York projects?
Yeah, for Dinner Creek, there's a couple. So really, there's two aspects. Part of the material in one of the Dinner Creek basins has some contaminated material. And so everything that's pulled out of that area will have to be taken to a TCEQ permitted landfill. And there are several near the site, but that hasn't exactly been finalized yet. Ultimately, the contractor will have to submit his disposal plan showing where he's proposing to take it, which landfill, which location, and he has to have approvals from both the district and the landfill. And for all the remainder of the material, it's the similar process where he has to go through, submit his disposal plan, showing where the materials be taken, because obviously he can't be disposing of it in environmentally sensitive areas or floodplain or anything like that. So there's some checks that have to go through. But to make the long story short, it hasn't been exactly determined, but it'll be within some either a landfill or nearby disposal sites at the approval of the Harris County Flood Control District.
All right, thanks.
Yes, and I can just answer this question as apart from the Little York project. The excavated material for West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin project will be disposed of by the contractor at an environmentally approved site outside the 500 years floodplain.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Our next question is for Jonathan. Jonathan, can you share the history of the project for the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin since the last community engagement meeting in October of 2019?
Sure. So the conceptual design report for Dinner Creek was finalized in the fall of 2019, and that plan was shared with the public back in October of that year. Since then, the Flood Control District has been working diligently, mostly to secure the additional funding that was needed to move the project forward. Remember, we talked about this project being over $50 million, and so that's a lot of money to secure. Fortunately, and Jeff referred to this in one of the earlier answers, we in that time, in the meantime, since 2019, we have had a contractor on site, a sand contractor, to be removing some sand material that they can then sell, and that's at no cost to the flood control district. And so for the last several years, we've been able to have that contractor on site to be removing material, ultimately saving us cost in the long run. And so once we were able to secure the bulk of this funding with the Community Development Block Grant, we were really able to kick into high gear, moving the project forward, finalizing design in the last couple of years, and sorting out the final permitting and utility difficulties. And Jeff even referred to the contaminated soil. That's another difficulty that the engineers have had to work out in the last couple of years, and that is all sorted out, and we're moving forward. So that brings us to today.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. We have another question from Adam. Adam is asking, and Hanny, this question is for you. We often receive questions about impacts to traffic and road and trail closures. Will there be traffic and other impacts during the construction of the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin project?
Yeah, that is a very good question. Like there may be some temporary closure or flagging operation near the construction access point of the site while we are starting the construction. But it's too early to know specific, or as we get closer to the construction, we will provide more updates to the community regarding any closure or flagging operation we may expect during the construction period. We always work to minimize traffic and construction impacts and keep the community informed while we already start the construction stage of the project.
All right, thanks, Hanny. Our next question is for Rod. Rod, we reviewed this in the presentation, but can you expand upon the difference between retention and detention?
Yes, Robert, of course. As we mentioned in the presentation, or more specific, Jonathan described, the Duna Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project is unique because it includes a gated outlet between the southeast compartment and Duna Creek, allowing the stormwater detention basin to store stormwater for short or long-term periods called retention. So with this project design, the new gate outlet will let the stormwater detention basin retain water in that compartment in addition to detaining it throughout the basin. This is particularly important because this project is upstream of Addicks Reservoir. Retaining additional stormwater within the basin can help reduce the amount of stormwater that Addicks Reservoirs holds during that rain event.
All right, thank you, Rod. Our next question is for Jeff. Jeff, we are often asked how a wet bottom stormwater detention basin full of water can hold more water. Can you please explain this?
Sure, good question. I think a key thing to note is that a wet bottom stormwater detention basin is not full in that aspect. Basically, the added stormwater detention, that volume is designed and constructed above and on top of the normal pool for flood mitigation purposes. So you have your static normal pool that's basically down at the flow line, and as it rains and the creek and basins fill up, it fills up that volume up on top of the normal pool static water. So that's kind of the aspect of how it functions. And generally, a wet bottom basin can provide more storage volume, has a greater environmental aesthetic enhancement. So I kind of mentioned earlier, with water quality than a dry bottom stormwater detention basin.
All right, thank you, Jeff. This next question is for Hanny. Hanny, the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin project plans include 3 dry bottom compartments. Can you please explain in more detail why these compartments are planned to be dry bottom instead of wet bottom?
Yes, of course. The West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin compartments are planned to be dry bottom compartments because the compartments were deemed not viable for wet bottom basin in the primary engineering study that was performed on this area. The site condition at that location do not allow for enough inflow capabilities for a wet bottom basin. A dry bottom basin drains dry and remain dry in between rain events rather than maintaining a permanent pool of water.
All right, thank you, Hanny. Our next question is for Jonathan. Jonathan, can you share the history of the project for the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin project since the last community engagement meeting?
Sure. So we can go even a little further back and remind folks that the project was originally recommended in 2006 by the Lower Langham Creek Regional Detention Study. More recently, since the last public engagement meeting, similar to Dinner Creek Detention Basin, we were able to utilize a sand contractor on this site to excavate material at no cost to the district. And so that occurred between 2020 and 2024 to help bridge that gap between the study and where we are today. We also, again, same as Dinner Creek, worked on securing that funding so that we can be able to bring the project to completion, along with finalizing the design and working through utility conflicts and things like that. And so that brings us to today, to where we are, really close to moving forward with construction.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. This next question is also for you, Jonathan. The bond program was mentioned earlier in the presentation, but for those unfamiliar, will you please share more about what it is and how residents can learn more about it?
Sure. So the Flood Control District has several funding sources for our projects, and you've probably heard again about the 2018 bond program. So after Hurricane Harvey devastated the county, voters approved a $2.5 billion bond to help fund infrastructure improvements, many of which are constructing stormwater detention basins across the county, just like these that we're talking about tonight. Many of those projects also include things like channel conveyance improvements, and a lot of times we use channel conveyance improvements in conjunction with stormwater detention basins, and so those really comprise your typical bond program infrastructure project. The Flood Control District has also worked with several county departments and other partners locally across the state and federally to secure an additional $2.7 billion to total $5.2 billion in bond program spending. And so really a good bit of that $2.5 billion in local bonds was leveraged to help secure that partnership funding. We do have a dashboard and interactive map on the bond projects on our website, and so residents can find pretty useful information on all of our projects, including funding and project status and more. And so we encourage everybody to stay up to date by taking a look at hcfcd.org/2018-bond-program for more.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. This next question is for Rod and Hanny. Sorry. And this is a common question we receive from the community. Our county's waterways are definitely multi-purpose. Do you know at this time if there are going to be any hike and bike trails constructed as part of the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin or West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin projects?
I guess I will start and I will speak on behalf of Dinner Creek. Thanks for the question. To start answering the question, I would like to reiterate that the mission of the Flood Control District, and that mission is to plan, implement, and maintain flood risk reduction projects guided by the community and natural values. There can be long-term community benefits beyond flood risk reduction, as we see in many detention ponds throughout the county. In some cases, stormwater detention basins can include recreational features like walking trails or green space. Those amenities are typically developed and maintained throughout partnerships with local governments or community organizations. Currently, there are no trails in the project area for Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin project.
Yes, as part for the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin, as we mentioned during the presentation, amenities such as walking trails and green space are usually developed and maintained through partnerships with local governments or community organizations. Currently, there are no trails planned for the West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin projects.
Okay, thank you both. Our next question is for Jonathan. Jonathan, community members often ask how they can stay informed about flooding conditions in their area. What many may not know is there are resources available online. Jonathan, will you please share more about how residents can receive flood warning text and email alerts?
Yeah. So one of the most important tools that we have for informing residents about potential flooding conditions is our flood warning system. The flood warning system shares near real-time data on rainfall and water levels along bayous and major tributaries in and around the county. The information is collected through hundreds of gauge stations that share information back to our flood warning system. And so everyone can view an interactive map of the gauge station, including rainfall levels and channel status and inundation maps at harriscountyfws.org. It's a really helpful site. Last Friday when we got all that rain on across the county, really, I was on that site most of the day, tracking how much rain all the gauges were piling up and seeing what was happening in the channels. Fortunately, it was only 2 or 3 inches, and so it wasn't that bad. But it's a really helpful site, whether it's a regular rainfall or a really bad rainfall, to keep everybody updated on what's happening. And so you can sign up for alerts, and to do that, head to fwsalerts.org and click Get Started.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. And this final question is for you as well. Jonathan, we often get this question during our meetings. In Houston, mosquitoes are definitely a concern. Will a wet bottom stormwater detention basin mean more mosquitoes in the area?
Yeah, we get that question a lot, and it shouldn't. So our engineers design the stormwater detention basins, whether wet or dry, to naturally discourage mosquito breeding. So first, on the dry bottom basin part, you see that picture on the right. The bottom of that basin is sloped to those concrete straight lines in the middle, which are pilot channels. And so when it rains, that thing is supposed to drain dry so that you don't have standing water, which would breed mosquitoes. But on the left is the wet bottom basin, and so the science shows that mosquito larvae prefer stagnant water that's less than 3 feet in depth. And so we always design our wet bottom detention basins to have 6 feet of water. And so that allows for or provides natural habitats for mosquito predators like birds and fish and dragonflies. And so, we talked earlier about the Dinner Creek Stormwater Detention Basin being wet bottom, but West Little York is dry. And the reason West Little York is dry is those cells are a lot smaller. And so we just wouldn't have very much space of that 6 foot depth. The West Little York Basin, if it were wet, just wouldn't be deep enough, and it probably would be a mosquito breeding ground, which is one of the reasons we need to keep it dry bottom. And so really the depth of the water is what allows for the habitat for everybody that eats mosquito larvae.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. And thank you all again for joining us and being a part of this important conversation. If you submitted a question that wasn't addressed tonight, it is our goal to provide a response within about 2 weeks. However, some questions require more research, and it also depends on the number of questions received. If you think of questions or comments later, or if you're watching this on replay and have something you want to add, please submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at hcfcd.org/C38 or hcfcd.org/ C37 for the Dinner Creek and West Little York Stormwater Detention Basin projects, respectively. We will work continuously to share updates on this project as our work moves forward. So sign up for updates on our website and follow us on social media to stay up to date on what we're doing in your neighborhood and beyond. Thank you, stay safe, and have a great evening.